The voice of the Demon Deacons is a position that many desire but only one person can have. That one person just won his 4th NSMA North Carolina Sportscaster of the Year award. He has also been around for many legendary players such as Tim Duncan, Chris Paul, and Josh Howard, and has also called many outstanding seasons such as the 2006 ACC Football Championship and this past year when the Deacs won the Belk Bowl. Before he was recognized for his award, we sat down with Stan Cotten right here in the Prairie Tower at BB&T Field to hear his thoughts about his broadcasting career and the present situation and the future situation of the Demon Deacons. Hello everybody, hope everyone's having a great week. If you can tell, we're not in the studio again, and that is because we are at BB&T Field in the press box, and we are with the man, the myth, the legend, the voice of the Demon Deacons, and that is Mr. Stan Cotten. Mr. Cotten, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, Eric. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
Good.
So I guess we'll kind of just do a process. We'll start back talking a little bit about when you first got into broadcasting, then more so some Wake Forest events.
Okay.
So to start, you started broadcasting because of an injury in high school football, if I'm correct, yes?
Yeah, I mean, that's all I ever wanted to be was a player. And when that went south, my football coach actually kind of introduced, so once you get involved with the media somehow, the radio station was carrying our game, got me involved a little bit, doing some interviews, and that was kind of the foot in the door, and one thing led to another, and thought, man, if I can get paid to do this, it'll be an avenue, a way for me to still be hooked up with sports, even though I couldn't play anymore, and just kept going, never quit.
Did that transition seem natural to you at the time?
You know, it really did. It was interesting. To me at least, it was the next best thing to play. Again, all I ever wanted to do was play, and it felt like, and still feels like today, that I'm a part of the game, a different part certainly, but a part of the game, a small part. But and that's what is so exciting to me every year, and what keeps me coming back. You never know what's going to happen in a game. You always anticipate the unexpected, and that keeps you on the edge of your seat. And so again, it's been for me a big draw, and it's kept me where I am for a long time.
Yes, so your first major gig, I guess, was coming out of University of Tennessee. You were the sports director for its WIVK event, if I'm correct, in Knoxville, which is the flagship station of the Vol Network. So I guess, like, what were your goals at that time? What was going through your mind with, I guess, like, that first major gig that you had?
Well, when I got involved in media, and it was radio to start, again, I wanted to be at the games. I knew if I was going to be in media long term, it was not going to be doing sports reports at a radio station. Wasn't going to be at a television station looking into a camera and reading script that I had written. It was going to be at ball games. I've done a lot of things over the last nearly 40 years now with media, but the thing that's always been consistent has been the games, has been the play-by-play. Without that, I'd be doing something else. So the games have always been the draw for me. And even back then, when I was at WIVK, as a teenager, I was doing Division II games at Carson-Newman University now. My high school football coach went to Carson-Newman as a football coach and was there nearly 40 years, and is in the top 10 all time. Died several months ago, but was certainly one of the more dynamic college football coaches. And he's the one that got me in it, and his love for the game, I kind of picked up after him and had a love for the game. And this way, I'm still a part of it. I know I couldn't be playing football still at 57 years old, but I can still work in the radio booth, and that's okay with me.
Of course. So I guess really, you talked about play-by-play. As your style has evolved, for someone, I don't know why they wouldn't have, but for someone that hasn't heard you, how would you describe your style?
Oh, I don't know. I probably got more old school in me than new school, for whatever that means. But I just try to be as accurate with regard to what's going on the field. I don't try to create things that aren't there. I just try to describe in as much detail as I can what's going on the football field or what's going on the basketball court, and add a little personality to it, add a flair here and there. And what I'm trying to do is, for those people who can't go to the games, is for them to, in a way, feel like they've been there, even though they haven't been here to BB&T or been maybe to Joel Coliseum. I try to stay out of the way as much as I can. The game's not about me, that's for sure. And hopefully when the game is over, for those who weren't able to attend, in a way they feel that they've been there. And if I can get them to that point, then I've done my job.
Right. So, like you said, you do football games here in BB&T, you do basketball games at the Joel, and you've also done some baseball games for ESPNU over at the Couch, which we can look at from here. Do you have a favorite, I'll say, in terms of calling games?
Oh, I don't know. Coach Prosser used to call me a football guy. Football's kind of my thing, and I love football. Basketball is very different in that it's so much more intimate. I mean, you're right there at courtside, and so much of the game you can really feel. I mean, during a football game, regardless of what the weather is, we have the windows up so that we can hear it, sense it, smell it, all those types of things. Basketball, you're right in the middle of it anyway. You don't have to do anything like that. So, and that part about basketball, I really, really like. Baseball is a completely different animal. I mean, it's such a slower paced game. But I enjoy baseball. I played baseball as a kid and played up into my early 20s, as a matter of fact. But it's more of a long for the slow slog through. Gosh, now college baseball games are taking 3.5, 4 hours. That's a long time. But baseball is a special thing. It's more of a storytelling type of thing in my view, and so they're all three very dissimilar in a way, and all very unique, and have certain things about them that I like. So I really don't have a favorite. It just, whatever season it is, I'm just glad to have a job.
Looking at the dissimilarities, is there a similarity in terms of preparation leading up to a game that you have?
Yeah, I mean, you want to know as much as you can about the teams, as you want to know about the storylines for each. Certainly for me, more so for Wake Forest, not the agenda, that's not the right word, but just what's going on in the program in a football game throughout the week. What has happened throughout the week that builds to Saturday? Basketball, you're doing 2 to 3 games a week, so it's a little bit different. But you just try to find out as much as you can. And today, it's much easier than it used to be, in that the schools give you so much information. My job is to take all of that information, everything that's out there, and try to pare it down to what I think I can use on the air during a game. And I create these charts for myself, as all of us do, for a call of a game, a play-by-play call. And I try to look back at the end of the games and see what information I used the most, what information I didn't use at all. That helps me prepare for the next one. But it's just you try to boil down all the stuff that you have that you think you might use, and then use as much of it as you can without forcing it. And when the game's over, look back on it, listen back as I do every game, and figure out what you did well, what you didn't do so well. Try to recreate what you did do well, and try to fix what you broke.
Right. So I guess looking at specifically at football to start, as you look at Coach Jim Grove, 2006, they won the ACC championship, and now we look at Coach Clausen, which I, as a student and someone in the media, that's all I've ever known here at Wake. And you look at what Coach Clausen has done. I guess, what would you describe? How would you compare or contrast Coach Groves and Coach Clausen in terms of style, in terms of how they run a football program?
Yeah. I think in some ways similar, and in other ways very different from one another. They're different types of personalities for sure. I will say this: Coach Clausen has done an amazing job. I really, he's an impressive individual with regard to detail and all those things. You're not going to out-coach Dave Clausen. You're not going to outwork his staff. I just don't think that's possible. And I think Wake Forest has an incredible football staff right now, led by Coach Clausen, and the opportunity this fall to win a 3rd consecutive bowl game that's never been done in Wake history is a tremendous opportunity. That speaks for itself. Coach Grove was, in a lot of ways, a much more laid-back individual, just personally, but yet he did things at Wake Forest that have never been done. since he's been here, and many years prior to the ACC championship. Case in point, it had been since 1970, as you know, Eric. In 2006, Wake was picked to finish dead last and won an ACC championship, went to the Orange Bowl, and that's a level that hasn't been seen here before. So both very high achievers in maybe different ways, and each has brought tremendous accolades to Wake Forest and to themselves personally. I can't say enough about Jim Grove and can't say enough about Dave Clawson in what they have done with Wake Forest. And I'm really anxious for the next 2 or 3 years to see where Coach Clawson can take Wake Forest. He's gotten it to a pretty good level right now. And, you know, the job now for him, and he'd be the first to tell you, is to keep it going, not to have a lull, not to fall back, but to keep building. And that's hard to do for anybody. And we'll see if he can do it. I think he can. I think he's recruited very well. I think the schedule is favorable to a certain extent, as much as it can be in the ACC, which gets better, I think, pretty much every year.
Yes.
So two great football coaches, and I think Wake's been very fortunate to have them both.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly, like you said, I'm really excited for the upcoming football season.
It's going to be fun.
I appreciate the intensity that Coach Clawson can bring. And I guess looking at this upcoming season, the most recent storyline as of now, we talked about it briefly before, is the suspension for the first 3 games of Kendall Hinton and Thomas Cole. So how large of an impact do you think this has on this upcoming season?
Well, we'll see. I mean, it happened in June and not August. That I guess is good. If there's any part of it that's good. It's unfortunate, but you know, Wake has some talent or some depth and talent at quarterback now, and that's good. You know, it's a hard thing. I think when you lose your quarterback for a fourth of the season. And he was the projected starter. Who knows what would have happened? He was a projected starter last August, and look what John Wolford did. So we'll see. I think those in the fold at quarterback, from Jamie Newman on down, all the way down to freshmen. You know, we could throw out several names of who might start against Tulane. So we'll see what happens, but. I admire Coach Clawson for what he did with those 2 guys and showing no favoritism whatsoever, and that's the way it's going to be in his program. And those 2 young men had to learn the hard way, and we'll see what happens. But again, I think Wake's got depth and talent at quarterback. I think we'll be okay.
Talking about depth at quarterback, the 2 biggest names, Jamie Newman and then a freshman coming in, Sam Hartman. How much confidence do you have in either one of them or another quarterback to really, I guess, help carry this team for those first 3 games and possibly onward if one of them is so good that they receive the starting job?
Yeah, well, those 2 guys you mentioned are certainly both very talented, and Sam got to come in early as a true freshman and has had some work, and that's always a good thing. You don't always have that luxury of being a true freshman. A lot of times you come in the summer and that's all you have, but he was here in the spring, got some good work. Jamie's been around for a while now, redshirt sophomore, so he knows the deal. I think he understands what Dave Clawson and the staff want from him, and I think probably right now the money would be on Jamie Newman, just because he's been around for a while. But who knows? We'll see. So again, there's talent there. They wouldn't be here if they weren't talented players, and both those players are intelligent and capable. So again, we will see. But my money would be on Jamie Newman. But it's June, and what do I know, right?
Right. Okay. So then, I guess this is more of a bold, hot take, if we want to call it that. Where do you see Wake Forest in December? It can be the couch, it can be the Orange Bowl, or anywhere in between.
Oh, wow. Coach Prosser used to talk about the football's not round. It bounces crazy ways. And you can look back to every single football season since I've been here, and those prior to me coming here, been here over 20 years now. You just don't know. And that's, as I talked about earlier, that's one of the things that keeps me coming back on Saturdays and keeps me coming back in the winter for basketball games. You just don't know. Injuries, all kinds of things happen during seasons and during weeks leading up to games, and the games themselves are just unpredictable. So I would be, I don't know. I think Wake has the talent, has the experience. Coach Clawson's been around a while now, so this is a group of young men that knows what Coach Clawson wants. I think the offensive line is going to be a big help, no question. I think depth at running back and wide receiver is going to be a big help. Defensively, I think pretty stout. I think we've got some question marks at kicker, which is not where you want to be. But again, it's June, and there's a lot of work to be done this summer, a lot of work to be done in August leading up to that Tulane game. And it depends what happens with other teams on our schedule. You just don't know. So that's the beauty of sport. That's why you practice, get ready, and that's why you play the game. So we'll see.
Yeah, as we learned in
sport. Did I dodge that okay?
You did. That was a good politician.
I mean, and honestly, I don't know that I've ever come out and predicted, oh, Wake's going to win 8 games, 9 games, 10 games, go to a bowl. I know this team has the talent to go to another bowl game, and I expect them to do that.
Of course. And I jokingly said hot take, but I know a lot of times those shows, it can get, a lot of it's just for ratings. But yeah, I mean, you can't predict anything in life and sports, as we've learned so many times.
But I'll say this, I'll think they'll go to a bowl game. How about that?
I'd agree. Yeah. I'm excited. Yeah. So, we're going to move to basketball now. And I don't want to age you, but you have...
go ahead. It's all right.
You've had the chance to call games with all-time greats like Tim Duncan, Chris Paul, and then we'll move very recent to the most recent NBA draft pick as of now, and that's John Collins. Mm-hmm. So, do you have a favorite memory through all of this?
You know, I get asked a lot about that, and as the years go along, my specific memories for a lot of the games it fades. And I remember more people than specific games. I mean, obviously there are games that I recall, but I remember specifically my first year was Tim Duncan's last year. And coming here from Marshall was very excited. Wake had won back-to-back ACC championships, and I really anticipated Wake maybe having a run at the Final Four during Duncan's senior year. It didn't happen. Lost in the second round of the tournament, but I remember more than specific games, maybe just teams, individuals, and Wake has had so many good players. From Tim Duncan, you mentioned Chris Paul, Josh Howard, recent years, Teague and some of those players, just player after player has come through here and done very, very well. And Wake's got great representation in the NBA, and Wake in my time has been number one on a handful of occasions in the country, which most teams can't say that. Won an ACC regular season championship under Coach Prosser, and so it's you look at the coaches that I've worked with, from Dave Odom to Prosser to Gaudio to Vizgelic to Manning. There've been a handful, right? Just 3 football coaches and a few basketball coaches, but it's been a great ride. And Coach Manning was dealt a pretty tough deal last couple of years with some of the players who've left the program for various reasons. Several have gone pro, and sometimes you can't account for that. So really highly rated class coming in this year, have that to look forward to. Certainly last year missed John Collins, Dino Smithoglu, and others, but you can only play with the ones you have, and so I'm excited about basketball this season, and with that influx of new talent, a lot of, we'll have 7, 8, 9 new faces in the basketball program this year, and we'll see how they gel and come together. But I know Coach Manning and his staff are working hard to that goal.
Yes, so I guess still looking at, two of the biggest, obviously, Chris Paul and Tim Duncan. I met with Dr. Kenny Hurst, he played with Tim Duncan, and he kind of gave me an inside look at him. I guess covering both of them, did they have any similarities and differences in terms of off-the-court personality or preparation?
Well, both worked awfully hard. I think both were in the gym early and they're late. They were those types of players. I don't think either one of them took anything for granted. I mean, Tim Duncan was consensus player of the year, and yet I think he worked as hard, if not harder, than anybody, and so did Chris. I think the thing that made them similar were that they made the players around them better. I asked Coach Prosser about Chris specifically about what made him so good. Was it his jump shot? Was it his whatever? And it was no. He just simply makes the others around him better. And that's, when I look at the great players, a guy like Josh Howard was very similar. That they drew their teammates into them and then made them better, if that makes any sense. But Chris was certainly much more of an outgoing personality than Tim Duncan was. Was just around Tim that 1 year. Didn't know him nearly as well, don't know Tim nearly as well as I know Chris, but and both have been incredible pros. I mean, you could make the argument Tim Duncan was certainly one of the top 10 without question players ever.
Right, yes.
And you could whittle that number down even more and make that argument. And who knows where Chris will be at the end of his career. But he's certainly a dynamic player and one of the best in the world.
Absolutely. So, you talked about, obviously there's a lot of excitement with so many great new faces coming in, but also there's a lot of questions about the departures. Some people going pro sooner than we initially thought or transferring. Do you think that's an issue? Do you think that's something that the basketball staff needs to look at and say, do we have an issue with retention beyond just people going pro?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think, college basketball, just in general, is, Wake Forest isn't the only one who's got players leaving for whatever reason. And I don't think we can be too hard on young men who, especially those who leave to go play professionally, whether that's they think in the NBA or somewhere else in the world. That's their choice, and that goes back into that. We've been talking about you just never know. As a basketball staff, as a football staff, you don't know from 1 year to the next whom you're going to have as a player. We've been talking about Kendall Hinton. Dave Clawson figured he was going to probably have a good shot at being a starting quarterback. Well, we know for sure he won't for the first 3 games now. So Coach Clawson has to adjust on the fly. Last year, I think, without question, Coach Manning thought that he would have John Collins and Dinos Middlewood. And then in the end, that didn't happen. And I'm not sure any program could have taken that kind of hit and done as well as it had hoped. So again, you don't know. So I think it's, again, Wake's looking at, we talked about 7, 8, 9 new faces this year. That's a lot, right? That's a lot, and I don't think you can plan for that. But it's the cards that Danny and his staff have been dealt. They've got to deal with it, and I think that's an issue across college basketball. With kids being able to leave and go other places, it's being made easier and easier, and I'm not sure that that's really a good thing, but it's what we're having to deal with.
Right, of course. So, I guess I'm not necessarily asking for a hot take this time, but looking at all these new faces, what's your expectations for the season? Do you have a lot of confidence in this?
Well, it's hard to win in the ACC with young players.
Right.
It just is. It's such a good league from top to bottom. That being said, the younger players, I think, from year to year, getting better. And I know that even though Wake will be a young team again this year, I think it's going to be a very talented team. And Danny's job and the staff's job is to kind of herd the cats, right? Is to get that group to gel maybe quicker, sooner than later. And we'll see how well and how much leadership those returning can give. And I think that's the key, how much leadership they can give, and how those that are coming back, how they gel with the new ones, and really how talented the new kids are. And until they throw the ball up in November and get rolling, you just don't know. It's all speculation at this point. But I'm anxious to see. I'm with each season. Everybody starts at the same point. And again, I'll fall back on you just don't know. When they throw the ball up and we get several games into basketball, then we'll see. I think we'll have a better sense of what Danny's got to work with and where the season might go than we do right now.
Okay, so final question.
Okay.
Revenue, non-revenue, it doesn't matter. Which sport are you most excited for in the next 2 to 3 years or so?
Oh, wow. I'm anxious to see where baseball goes. Starting at times 6 freshmen last year. I think Wake and Vanderbilt, if I'm not mistaken, were the only 2 teams in the country that started 6 freshmen. I think Wake's got enough coming back, enough pitching coming back to have a really, really good baseball season. I love golf, and so I'm anxious to see how golf does every year. Jennifer Cupcho winning the national championship was certainly exciting. That span of 7 days where Jen won the national title and then men's tennis coming in with an individual championship and a team championship was very exciting. I don't know if anybody in the country had a better 7 days than Wake Forest back earlier in the spring. So, it's exciting for all of it. That young people out there on the court or on the field, whatever they're doing, they're fun to watch. It's fun to be around them. There's, when August, September rolls around and the school year begins, the athletic year begins, it's all exciting. And I'm anxious for another year at Wake Forest. My 23rd, they've come and gone pretty quickly, but I'm anxious for all of them. But certainly for me, football and basketball are the ones I'm most anxious about because it's those 2 sports, along with baseball, are the ones that I'm most involved with on a daily basis. And you get to know the players, you get to know the coaches, and you see how hard they work, and you see how much they sacrifice to do what they do. And so, you want them to do well. And I think all 3, football, basketball, and baseball, could have good seasons, and I'm going to count on that, and here's hoping that they do.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be able to do this. Thank you for having me in, I guess, your inner sanctum.
It's hard to tell probably from our angle where we are, but the field's right behind us.
Yes, the lighting was kind of getting a little wacky at first.
This is not a bad place to work. It's fun coming here every week.
An awesome view. And, of course, thank you very much for watching, everybody. Stick around for some more content. And, as always, go Deeks!